Meeting is being live streamed. Got it. The page is now opening. Let me get into YouTube on my phone so I can moderate from there. Meeting is being live streamed. Great. Got it. Sound is solid. And there we go. Awesome. Hey, Allison, welcome. I've got two Allisons with me today.
Where's the other one? I didn't see her.
The other Allison is in the chat. She is the whole soul, Allison Scoff. Welcome. Allison, just let me know if you can hear me okay. And Miss Alison Armstrong, if you would say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Alvin. Hey, Kat. Okay, we've got visual and sound on Allison. Fantastic. It is so great to see you. Hey, Jen. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. I'm doing a wonderful live stream with the illustrious Alison Armstrong. And I'm thrilled to be here with her and with you guys as we come into the month of December, because we are now, as many of you know, 30 days into what we're considering the peak of this union window energy, where the divine counterparts will meet in the sky in the sign of Aries, which is causing us all to have a bit more union with self, balancing our own inner masculine and feminine energies. And not only that, but it is creating, as we've all felt, a bit of a stir in the world of figuring out partnership, love, connection, and communication. So one of my teachers, Alison Armstrong, is here with us today to talk to us a bit about what does it mean to balance that inner masculine and feminine energy in such a way that we can have great communication, beautiful connection with others in our world that we would like to share love with. So I'm thrilled about this. I know you guys will be too. This recording will stay live on my channel. And if you're just willing to hang out till the end, I have some special ways that you can get connected to Allison when we're complete. So thanks everyone for being here. Please hit that like button. It helps the content get to the right people through the algorithm. Now, if you are new to Alison Armstrong, you've never heard her name before, you're in for an extraordinary treat. She has been exploring human behavior since 1991. So we have a legend, an icon with us today. It's true. Why are you laughing? It's true.
Well, I laugh because there's how we think things happen, and then there's how they really happen. And you would think someone who's an icon would set out to become an icon, right? And no, no, I just had a question pop in my head. What if men are responding to women? And I thought studying them, take 2 or 3 months to learn everything that was worth knowing about them, because of course they were shallow and didn't have any feelings and maybe didn't have any souls. And these are all things I thought in February of 1991. And I've never committed myself to being an expert on men and women and relationships and union. I love that you brought up the word union. It's one of my favorites. I never committed myself to it. I just became fascinated, endlessly fascinated so far, right? Going on 32 years. So that's why I laughed when you said an icon, because I still feel like such a kid on an adventure.
I love that you relate to it in that way, because one of the things that happens a lot on my channel with my audience is we get spiritually interested in the conversation and want to see what's happening from that perspective. But when I have turned to you and what I have learned from you is that integrating the behavioral and the thought processes of the differences between men and women is what actually makes connection work. It's what makes it alive.
Mm.
And so you began by studying how to bring out the best in men.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the original question. And then that question evolved into what if men are actually responding to women? And so from there, it became a bigger conversation about why people behave the way they do. And so for those of you who don't know, she's at AlisonArmstrong.com, and she offers practical partnership-based alternatives through seminars, books, online programs. She's been interviewed a ton. So if you love this, find her on YouTube. You'll find her everywhere. And yeah, she's a life changer. And I know today, if you stay tuned through the end, she's going to change your life too. So Alison, I see no need to continue with the preamble. Let's dive into the meat.
Yeah, you introduced a pretty intense question there. Is that the one that you wanted me to dive into, or you're breaking it down for me?
I kind of want to go back meta, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
When you see men and women come together to attempt to create union energy, connection, communication, harmony, relationship, what are the top 3 breakdowns you see happen and why? Now, I know that could take the whole hour. So if you want to give me just one, we'll start there.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if they're the top 3, but they're the top 3 that are coming to mind as you asked that. Okay. One that I see a lot is the assumption that it's supposed to be easy or organic. Is a word, like, well, are we just supposed to meet someone that it organically flows with? Given that we have opposing instincts, there's not really a good chance of that, right? So the idea that it's supposed to be easy, and when it's not easy for us, that there's something wrong with me or there's something wrong with the other person, instead of there's a lot to work out. And you use the word partnership and union, and I have yet to identify a single human instinct that pulls in the direction of partnership, that actually pulls for union. All of our instincts trash what we say that we want the most. So the first thing would be the assumption that it's supposed to be easy. The second would be, I would say, one of the biggest breakdowns come down from what we take personal that isn't personal. So there's so many things that we think are wrong with us, and men and women both express this to me all the time. And then what they go on describing is a human behavior. It's not personal. It's what human beings do. And so that would be the second thing that's going to get in the way, is thinking what I'm doing is because of my own injuries or history or peculiarities, or what they're doing is because they're damaged, or they've been hurt and they're shut down, or they're misogynistic, or that they don't love me enough or care about me enough or respect me enough to act right. All the different ways that we can assume the reason somebody is doing something is personal. And there are personal reasons, but mostly we've got it backwards. So when I started with the question, what if men are responding to women? I found out a ton of ways that men are responding to women, but I also found as many ways that they're not responding to women. And yet we take it personal. Mm-hmm. So I would say those 2 things. And then the third thing I would say that gets in the way is is trusting our perceptions. So we think that what we're seeing is factual, that what we see, what we feel, what we hear, these are all factual. And what's wrong with the other person that they're not seeing it the right way? And we don't know, like, for example, that estrogen and testosterone configure the brain differently, and including the visual cortex. And what we perceive and how we process what we perceive isn't even the same. The idea that we're going to agree or should agree on everything, we're more likely to never, ever see the same thing. And so if we can give that up, that maybe we're not, maybe we don't, and we're not supposed to, and that's what we have to contribute to each other, are these different ways of seeing things. And what did you call it? The divine counterparts, right? Even as the divine counterparts come together in the sky, they still aren't going to see everything exactly the same. They'll never have the same point of view. So clarify and verify, question, like awareness and questioning. And like something both men and women do is, and even children do it, is decide what somebody else needs and then provide it for them. And then expect to be appreciated for it. And so if we can just take a gap between decide and provide, verify and clarify, we call it a great give. Like, okay, I'm thinking that you're struggling with this, and I'm wanting to provide this for you to help with that. Are you struggling with that? And would you want this from me? And if not, could you tell me what's really going on? And is there anything I can do? And then, as you know, okay, imaginary duct tape. And wait and listen, you may find out what we have decided is going on with that person is completely off base. And it's one of my favorite parts of the Queen's Code, which I know we're going to talk about more later. But in chapter 6, one of the characters asks a man for something, and he's horrified by what she's asked. And he assumes she's asking it for the reasons it had been asked of him before. And then he looks closer and sees, oh no, that's not what's going on at all. And that's what we need to do. We all need to look closer.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alison. Such great responses. Oh my goodness. I could just soak this up for more hours than what we've got, because I'd love to break down what you have, but I have other questions. And if you're listening in live, welcome. Just joining, welcome. We are going to get to open Q&A with Alison momentarily, so just hang tight. So one of the things I see happen a lot and get asked a lot about when people want to look at the charts, they ask me, well, we're not communicating well, or we're not communicating at all. How do I reestablish our open communication? Again, my analytics say my audience is 96% women.
Yeah.
So with a man, what are 2 things that shut men down and repel them the most, and 2 things that open hearts and ears?
Oh, beautiful question. 2 things that shut men down are what they experience as an accusation, and the second would be a trap. So accusations normally come in the form of a critical question, like, why don't you take out the trash? Right? Or why don't you just listen to me? Or how am I ever going to get more time from you? And those are ways that we'll express our needs and our frustration in being able to get them met. And men experience those as attacks. And what they'll do, because they don't realize that it's a sort of cagey way that women communicate while remaining on guard, they respond to the words literally. Why haven't I taken out the trash? Well, I just got home and haven't even gotten out of my suit yet. Right? So he'll respond exactly to that question instead of the bigger thing that question is referring to for her. And how am I ever going to get more time with you? Well, more, as women, we don't know, more to a man is an impossible amount to ever achieve. So he's already set up to lose. More is unquenchable. And then the trap that we don't realize we're setting for them, but it's the word feel. So we'll say, I feel like you don't love me. And to a man, he has this ultimate powerlessness, because from his point of view, your feelings are inside of you, and he can't affect your feelings. And you've spoken your feelings as if they reflect the truth. I feel that you don't love me. Therefore, you must not love me. And he's just flabbergasted because he knows he does. But you're sure he doesn't. And he can't think of anything to do about that. So fortunately, there are cures for this. And one of them is attitude and one of them is word. So first of all, the attitude that someone is misbehaving, that they have a stupid reason for doing what they did or for not doing what they're supposed to do, that attitude has us come in that way. And it will always put men on edge, and it will always have them defending themselves. And then we think they're immature, that they're defending themselves. They should just own up to it, right? But if ever you think a man's defending himself, look and see, is there anything about me that's an attack? And often it's just energetic. Often it's our point of view that, you idiot, you should already know this. And a better man would have already done it. And that's an attack. So we have to check in with our attitude. Like, what if there's a good reason for that? This is something that Kimberly and Karen get introduced to in the Queen's Code, the two of the characters, to question, what if there's a good reason for that? What if there's more here than I'm seeing? Again, question our perceptions. And then once you're willing to question, like even Grant, well, maybe he has a good reason for it. Even if you just get that far, then if you just change one word, change feel to seems like, instead of I feel like you don't love me, or I feel that you don't love me. I feel that you don't care about me. I feel that I don't feel respected by you, right? Just change it to seems like. It seems like you don't want to be with me. That seems like allows for him to be having an experience that you don't know about. And that room that you're offering is, if you don't interrupt, right? Imaginary duct tape. That room that you're offering is much safer than what most women offer. And you got to watch that, not to use it against them, because then they just shut down. But just as we do, we shut down when what we've expressed get used against us. So just, it seems like, so when you do that, it seems like you don't care about me. Really? What about it? Has it seemed like you don't care about me? Well, the whole time we were going to my mother's, you never looked at me once. I was driving. it was snowing and I was driving. If I looked at you once, we'd end up in a ditch. I love looking at you. Like, looking at you is one of my favorite things to do. Think I would look at you if I could have without maybe killing us both. And then we find out there's a whole other world going on over there. And we can connect that way.
I love it. Thank you. Great. So, two things that shut things down are accusation or attack, and that comes in tone and language.
And tude.
The attitude.
Our attitude. Yeah.
And the solution for that is to take an attitude of curiosity.
Perfect word.
And the second thing was bringing the feelings as if they are the facts.
Yep.
And the solution for that is to provide them as a perception with the language, it seems like.
Yeah, it seems like.
And then to check in.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Is that true? Yeah. Like I've said to my boyfriend, I got my feelings hurt when you were gruff with me just then. And it seems like it wasn't okay for me to disagree with you. And it was just like, stop the train. Oh, of course you can disagree with me. And I'm sorry I was gruff. I was afraid. It's like, I was afraid. And then I realized, oh, you had reason to be afraid. Oh, I'm so sorry. So like, it just this seems like it's like taking a all tangled up necklace that's a mess, and it puts oxygen in there so you can start to get it sorted out together on the same team.
Amazing. I love that you've got these tips for opening hearts and ears. And the book that Alison's got on audio that we're going to talk about momentarily is chock full of these, chock full of them. And so too are all of Alison's courses, which are extraordinary. I recommend you take them if you really want to integrate this information more directly. Here's what I'll tell you, though. It can be confronting. And in the very beginning of the Queen's Code, Alison, you've talked about how important it is to take in the information without blame, shame, guilt, regret. How on earth is a woman supposed to do that?
Regret, I don't mind. I think it's a good teacher. But yeah, definitely not blame or again, taking something personally. What's wrong with me? So the behavior that undermines the quality of relationships that we want is normal behavior. It's normal for women to do all of that. And it's normal for women to not understand what motivates men, to not understand how we disempower them, that it's all normal. And instead, I would keep forgiving yourself if necessary, keep celebrating, becoming aware, and know you did the best you could with what you were given. And there are very few women, not just in our culture, but around the world, very few women who are given an understanding of the differences between men and women that come way before choice, right? They're prescribed by hormones and instincts that are ancient, and that we've all done the best we could, and we weren't given an alternative. And now our lives aren't occupied by surviving. right? We don't have to hunt and gather from dawn to dark to survive. So we have room for awareness. We have room for paying attention to the quality of life, like what all of your work is about. And with that awareness, we now can make different choices and have very different results. And that's the thing that excites me the most, right? How I ended up paying attention to men and women all this time is because these little differences, right? Like feels like to seems like can make such a huge difference. And it's magic or radioactive, however you want to think of it. Tiny, tiny things, waiting that 30 seconds, counting to 30 to yourself, waiting for an answer. And don't ask a question of a man that you're not committed to. Commit to the question before you ask him to commit to an answer, because that's what he'll do. And he'll take his time to think about it. And we're so uncommitted, we'll just interrupt, right? So, I mean, so many things I learned about men, I was horrified, right? Because there were things I thought should work and they didn't work. But then as I kept looking and interacting with them, and even before I learned ways to bring out the best in men, I just stopped doing the things that bring out the worst. And I was astonished at how they changed in the way they interacted with me, the kindness, the generosity, the protectiveness, the thoughtfulness. I mean, they're extraordinary. But when we don't know that they default to being warriors, and they'll protect us if they can, but if we're attacking them, they have to protect themselves from us, we're not going to get any of the good stuff. And we don't know that how, as women, we normally interact with each other is so much harsher to a man. Like, women criticize themselves and each other all the time. We just throw them off. Well, why don't you do that anymore? Why didn't you do that? Or why did you do it that way? And we don't like it, right? And it changes us, but we don't realize how much it can have a man protect himself from us. And how much, I don't know how much, okay, you know this, we don't know how much they love us. We don't know how vulnerable they are to us. And we don't know because mostly they spend a lot of time pretending they're not, as a way to protect themselves. They don't want us to know how vulnerable they are, because then we may use that against them too. Stopping myself. I could keep going down that track. They're a paradox. Men are such a paradox. They are so strong and so sensitive, especially to us.
So true. I have seen it with my own eyes, and my father and my brother and the men I'm around. So true. So you've mentioned a tool that I think I'd like you to just break the tool down, because you've mentioned it several times since we've been live together, that if people walk away with nothing else, let's have them walk away with this.
Okay. Which one?
Talk about the imaginary duct tape. What's that all about?
Okay. So I'm going to rewind to something you said in the beginning, because it could get laced through all of this. Okay. So you had started by talking about balancing the masculine and the feminine within ourselves, right? And within and expanding that. And one of the ways that I look at masculine and feminine, which they use those words in the Queen's Code, but I don't use them very often these days because there's a lot of baggage. But if we think about you could think about that the masculine is all about producing results. And women, we can get all about producing results as much as men. And you could think of the feminine is about connection, right? And another way that you could think of it is that we can be very focused, goal-oriented, end game, destination, get her done, get her done, get her done. And certainly as women, we can do that from dawn to dark. Or we can have a more open state of mind. So you could think of a committed state of mind and an open state of mind. And this affects everything. It affects what we see, how we process it, even how we relate to our feelings, how we relate to attention and the quality of attention. And it causes all kinds of monkey business, because in a committed state of mind, we would use the word secure. We feel secure when we're producing results and when we're trusted and we're respected. In an open state of mind, we're more likely to use the word safe. We feel safe when we feel connected. And we feel like we can cause that connection when we have interest and attention from another person, a good kind of attention. So if we're balancing this in ourselves, it's going to have a lot to do with our relationship to time. So when we don't think we have enough time, we can't be open. When we don't have enough time, we have deadlines, right? We have a lot at stake. It has to happen by when, and it's drive. When we experience accidentally or cause ourselves to experience that we have plenty of time, then we can be open, then we can be playful, then we can consider options and alternatives, other people's ideas. We have more space for other people. And that's one of the ways that I used to distinguish femininity, that when we're being feminine, we're really holding a space. It may be a space of compassion, or you mentioned curiosity, right? Curiosity comes from the Greek word that means to care. Curiosity is an enormous and beautiful space. So when we're in that get her done, right, that committed get her done way of being, we're likely to be listening for, so what's the answer to the question? Where's the answer? Where's the answer? Right? Like, quick, answer my question. I got to take the answer and go produce a result with it. You're holding everything up by not answering. And often we'll ask a man a question and expecting an immediate answer, which is more likely for a woman's mind to be able to do, just give an answer. And when they don't give an answer, then we'll rephrase the question, not realizing that a rephrased question is often a very different question. Like the difference between where do you want to go on vacation and where do you think we should go on vacation? To a man, those are hugely different, right? But whatever question we ask, if he has space, if he's not already committed to something, a man will honor us by committing himself to answering our question. And then when he doesn't answer fast enough because he's thinking about it, because he isn't just going to come off the top of his head, he's going to give us his best answer. And when we rephrase it, now he's got to uncommit to finding the answer to the first question, and then now commit to this question and go looking for that answer. And usually by then they've taken too long, and so we give them multiple choice. So this is why I say commit to your question. What is your question? Is it where do you want to go on vacation? Is it where we should go on vacation? Or is it, I want to go to Spain or France? Where would you like to weigh in? What is the question? And how open is it really or not? And then once you ask the question, I talk about it being imaginary duct tape. Just stop yourself from interrupting. And you can count to 30, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Don't wander off and do something meanwhile. Unless you're setting it up, I have a question that I'd like you to think about it. You can get back to me in the next couple of days or more, because it really matters. Can I tell you the question now? Then you could go do something meanwhile for 2 or 3 days. But mostly we just need to be there and not be like, where's my answer? Where's my answer? Be there holding space for them to think. And usually most answers come in about 18 seconds or so. I have waited 3 days before and it was worth it. We call it waiting for the well. And if you think of men's thoughts being in the well and men's emotions and men's feelings, how do you feel about me? Those are at the very bottom of the well. You got to wait a lot longer for them. And I'm glad you brought it up, Kay, because I know men and women who've transformed marriages with just that, just waiting longer for the other person to respond.
Wow. Imaginary duct tape. It goes such a long way. Who knew?
It does. Some of us might need real duct tape for a while, but get more like painter's tape. Won't hurt much coming up.
I love that. I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to it.
Okay.
There's something I'd like to ask next. I know that some people are listening now, and in the astrological energy of the last 90 days, I'll say, there has been immense support for taking a moment of pause, reflection, and revisiting actions that may have been taken that have not necessarily aligned with outcomes we'd like to experience. So that's been in the air.
Mm-hmm.
If there has been insight among our viewers today that in order to restore communication, an apology may be needed, what's the best way to offer an apology if you know one is owed? And I know you cover this later in the Queen's Code, but I'm curious if you want to give our audience some starter tips today for that.
Yeah. One would be to distinguish apology from what I call the magic words. Someone said to me, I apologize for that. And I wasn't restored. And I wondered why I apologize. Why didn't it work? And I looked it up in the dictionary, and under apology, it said to acknowledge wrongdoing and offer an explanation. And acknowledging wrongdoing, that's awesome. I mean, that can end a whole argument right there. Like, just to say, you're right. You're right. That was a lame move. And I remember one time saying to a man, I'm sure you had a good reason for that. And he said, no, I was just an ass. It's like, because I wasn't attacking him, he could say that about himself, right? And so I apologize, acknowledging like, that shouldn't have happened, or I shouldn't have done it, or that was a stupid thing for me to do. Yes, that can make a big difference. It really does end an argument. Offering explanation for why you did, many times people aren't ready for it. They can't hear it because there's still pain there. Because there's what was done, and then there was how they interpreted what was done and the effect that it had on them. And so when when people are full of pain, they can't take in other people's reasons. In fact, the giving of the reasons will just make us more upset. So this is why I distinguish between an apology and the magic words, which the magic words are honoring the other person's experiences. Like if they say, you disrespected me, to even though in your own body you don't feel a stitch of disrespect in it, that you can honor their reality. And this goes back to this thing, and we have such different perceptions. It's superhuman to honor someone else's perceptions when we only trust our own. And to say, I'm sorry I disrespected you. And you could say, I'm a little confused about how I disrespected you. I believe that I did, but could you break it down for me? Because otherwise I'm in danger of doing it again. Imaginary duct tape. And we'll find out, like, I mean, it's one of the ways that I found out so much about men and how when we ask them for information, they're giving us their very best. And so for us to interrupt them and redirect is disrespecting how hard they're working for us in those moments. It's one of the things I have to teach men to say to a woman, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And they're mystified by that. Like, how could I have hurt your feelings? They're in you. And I didn't punch you. I didn't stab you. I didn't reach in you inside you and squeeze them. How could I have hurt your feelings? And, I break that down for them in our Understanding Women course so they know how it is for us and can have more compassion, which allows them then to just say, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. And my boyfriend, Dan, God bless him. He's so good at this. And I've taught it. He taught him. He'll readily say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And I've taught him also, though, that if I say, I got my feelings hurt when you did that, that he doesn't have to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, because me saying I got my feelings hurt is me owning as much as I can. This was probably my interpretation and had nothing to do with what you did. And so for him to say, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt. And when I did that, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And can I tell you why I did what I did? And then he waits to let me, for me to say, I'm not ready for that yet. Or, yeah, but not now. Or, no, that'd be really helpful. Could you please tell me what you intended by that? And so this kind of rigor, which means we got to slow down, right? We got to slow down and pay attention to ourselves and sort it out. What's going on with me? What am I experiencing? Okay, what if they never intend that? They never want to disrespect me. They never want to hurt me. Okay, so what do I need to be different? What do I need to be restored from the past? And what do I need to be different in the future? And can we make a deal? And this is what I meant in the beginning, Kay, about thinking that it working well between us should just be organic and easy. No. No, it's so many little agreements, little deals. Even telling someone, okay, I realize that I usually interrupt you and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry if you experience that as disrespect. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. And I'm working at committing to what I want to ask of you before I ask it, and then waiting for the answer. And so I may seem kind of weird for a while, but if you'd help me out with it. And if I do interrupt, could you just kind of look at me like, hello? but not have a big reaction because I'm trying to break a habit. This is partnership. This is a form of partnership that we're on the same team to change behavior and even attitudes that will destroy what it is you're trying to build.
Gold. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gold. And you mentioned some magic words. I believe they are towards the back of the Queen's Code in the later part of the book. Yes. Is that an understanding men only?
We teach it in Celebrating Partnership, which is a recording of a live course.
I like that course.
Yep. You can, it's one of the ones that's now on our app. We published an app finally. And you can also, it's also at Audible. So we teach it in Celebrating Partnership. We teach it in Understanding Women. It's the last session, Understanding Women, called the F Word and the Dragon. So it's about when women's feelings are hurt, if we're not, if the intervention doesn't come soon enough, you'll have a 30-foot fire-breathing dragon committed to your destruction. So we teach how to tell when a woman's feelings have been hurt, so you can get ahead of it. Taught men to say, when a woman in his life seems like withdrawn, or she was really happy, now she's not anymore. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And to offer that, it's kind of like a seems like, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And you'll either get, if you hurt my feelings, confirmation, proceed with, or you didn't hurt my feelings, you disrespected me, you totally blew me off. Confirmation of another sort. Or, oh no, honey, it's not you. I'm just in a funk. It has nothing to do with you. And it's so sweet of you to say that. So either way, you get actionable intel and often points. So, but this gets into a whole other area of interpretation, right? That it's what we think people mean by what they do that is what hurts our feelings or seems like disrespect. But we have such different perceptions. We're rarely perceiving accurately. Did you mean to hurt my feelings? I got my feelings hurt. And it seems like you meant for them to be hurt. Did you? Right? That between decide and provide, or decide and cut somebody's head off, clarify and verify. Get curious. It's difficult, but it's simple. It takes courage. It takes humility. The opposite of, arrogance. I know and you don't. But it works like magic.
So you're going to get in my pocket and talk for me? All my relationships, Alison? How do I get a personalized version? Alison to show up as like I need like an Alison voice box so that my words go into the mask and then Alison's words come out.
That's so funny. Well, okay. So last we spoke had been about 1.5 years after Greg died. And I was out there in the world thinking that I do want to have a romantic relationship. And then 2 years ago is when I met Dan. And honestly, I had to relearn everything. Things that were so stable in my marriage, from all the things, because Greg was my primary lab rat, right? So we'd have a blow up and then I'd reverse engineer it and I'd ask him questions and he'd help me to understand it. And then we both have a new understanding and could make a deal about handling something different. And my policy was I'm not done till I'm glad it happened. So anytime something would blow up, I was not finished until what I learned and could do for the future was worth having gone through all that. And I found out later, he said it, I got to hear our love story from his point of view. And one of the things he said was it took him a long time to get used to how many words I needed. It's really funny. But my point is that I had to relearn everything and relearn everything in the context of interacting with a man who's, well, we have a lot that's compatible and in common, and that's really fun. We're also so different. And so I've wished I had like an Alison Armstrong in my pocket. And there's times I've been mortified at what I've done that I at least should know better. But, you know, we all have to slow everything down because we're reacting to people so quickly. And what's going to be there are the old neural pathways, and what's going to be there are human instincts. So to take a breath, take a pause. A question I give people a lot: what would I do if they were my friend? Right? When we're going into strategy about how to get somebody to do something or how to ask them something, well, what would I do if they were my friend? I'd just come out and ask them. Well, I would just send them a text and say, I haven't heard from you in a while. Hope everything's all right. Right? Like what would I do if they were my friend? And so if we can slow things down, and this person's not my enemy, they probably didn't mean to hurt me. If they did, they probably don't get to be part of my life anymore. I'm not going to hang around with people who intend to hurt me. Okay. All right. Now I know a boundary there. That's good to know. But so much of it isn't, yes, I can generate words, right? Till the cows come home. The Queen's Code is so much about the hero language and the words that really connect to who men are. But the words without the right attitude will be horrible. It'll make things worse. And so I think it's worry less about the right words and pay more attention to where am I coming from. And if I'm coming from, I got to handle this person, I got to get something from them they don't want to give me, I've got to overcome something. It doesn't matter if you've got good words or sentences, it's going to go awry. And the way that I thought of it lately is the word reach. We've got to reach towards the other person. And curiosity, right? It seems like I got my feelings hurt. I don't think you meant to. Did you? Right? These are all reachings. And then when we can see that the other person's trying to reach back, they may not be saying it exactly the way we need them to. They may not have gone to where the script would have sent them. They may bring something up that comes from a different direction, but they're still interacting. And can you recognize that they're reaching back? And as long as we keep doing that, as long as we're reaching towards the other person, we will figure it out.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've got.
Is that what the divine counterparts are doing in the sky? They're reaching towards each other?
They are reaching. They are reaching. They come. Awesome. It is awesome. What's interesting when they do sit together in the way that they are is to put it in language we've used today. Everything in the world of human instinct that keeps us from connecting comes right up so that it must be dealt with. Every brick we have between us and love shows up for us to take them down one by one. So it's a powerful and potent time energetically. which is why I'm like, okay, yes, this is the perfect time for Alison to come on, because in order to deal with bricks, we don't need Reiki. We need tools.
Mm.
And there's a time for Reiki and there's a time for tools. And this is a time for tools. So, okay. Audience Q&A. Let's dig in. Let me see what I found here. There was some really great ones. Elvin asks, when a man is scared of being cut off or facing great judgment because of his actions, what's the root of that?
So this is a man asking a man question?
No, Elvin's a woman curious
Woman.
about gentlemen in her life who may be scared of either being cut off or facing great judgment in the circumstance that he's dealing with. Why would they go there?
Well, judgment is part of accountability. And so it's an accountability is part of producing results and being a provider. So judgment is all part and parcel of that committed, focused way of being. And whereas you could see non-judgmental would be more open, right? And we need both. And a concern about being judged unfavorably is because it will affect his ability to produce results. He'll lose respect, or he may lose trust, and then he won't have access to generating what he wants to generate. And so that is going to happen in the workplace all the time. And in personal relationships, it has to do with when he cares, right? Caring is the biggest expenditure of energy a man can make, is to care. And if it's always going to be afraid of losing, like a fear of losing contact or getting to contribute to and provide for someone that he cares about, and losing that person in his life. And I remember after Greg and I started going out, we broke up. And because I had fallen in love with another man, and Greg became my friend. And when I asked him about it later, when the other thing blew up and he and I got back together, he said, I just wanted you in my life in any way I could have it. And that's not something that we normally attribute to men, that depth of feeling that they care so much about someone, they're gonna have them in their life however they can. And if it's not the ideal, like Greg was talking about our grandchildren on our first date, so that's what he wanted. And this was much less than that, which turned out to be a miracle. So we said when we got back together that becoming friends was the smartest thing we ever did. And we made a pledge from forever on, friends first. I'm for you, for you. We're friends first. It's not about what I can get from you. And so I don't think men ever escape the effect of judgment because it's so tied to their security. And it's also why one of the 12 things that makes someone the right person to commit to is, and these are in the words of men, is they like me. It's one of the 12 things. They like me, and I can tell they like me. And it's one of the things you can do because we love men being confident, right? They're so hot when they're confident. One of the ways you can have the men around you be more confident, especially in a romantic situation, is to let them know what you like about them. that when they do something in a certain way, oh, I really like that about you. Oh, that's one of the things I like about you. Or, hey, I was thinking about you today, and I thought of 5 things I like about you that you might not know. Wouldn't that be a good time to tell you? And then watch what happens to them. Because being liked, like means to prefer. So to prefer that someone is the way they are, that's acceptance. And men care as much about acceptance as we do. We care more about acceptance from more people than men do, because we're herd animals, women, and we're prey mostly. And men are also, they're pack animals, and they're more predator than prey, although we both can do both. And so as herd animals, like horses, we care about what everybody thinks. And, as pack animals, they just care what the alpha thinks. What matters is that the alpha and the beta, depending on where they are in the pack. Everybody else, what they think doesn't matter. Again, all instinctual, not carefully considered. I hope that answers your question. I hope that's helpful.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. And you have a book, The Queen's Code, where much of this is illuminated as an introduction to your work. And if people want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, they always can. There'll be workshop links below this video if you want to do that. However, The Queen's Code, bring us in to The Queen's Code. What is that?
What is that? Well, we're talking because I finally recorded the audiobook, which people have been asking me for since 2012, when we published the ebook on the internet. And within 3 weeks, it was being read in 70 countries. It was a crazy explosion we didn't expect. And the Queen's Code is the result of something I did very committedly, and then magic. So, or whatever word anyone wants to use. So I spent better part of a couple decades identifying what are ways that women bring out the worst in men. What has us do what we do that brings out the worst in men? And then how do we justify what we're doing that brings out the worst in men? And thousands and thousands of women and men I interacted with, sorting mostly that out. Plus, okay, and how could we do this all better? And so I knew from very early on that I was going to write the Queen's Code, that I needed to. And then I wasn't ready. I didn't think it would take so long to get ready. But then when I did sit down to write it, I didn't write it. A screen opened up, a movie started playing, and I typed as fast as I could. And 3 weeks and 96,000 words later, there was the Queen's Code. And I didn't write it. The best you could say is, like, if somebody reverse engineered a screenplay from watching a movie. I watched a movie and I tried to describe what I was seeing as best I could. And it was, it was a magical, mystical experience. The same thing had happened with Keys of the Kingdom, the prequel, almost 10 years earlier. But I didn't expect it to happen again. That was so stunning. And you'll hear in the audiobook, I'm sure you did listening to it, it's very emotional for me to read the audiobook and to convey what I saw and heard in that movie. And sometimes I would break down. I have to stop and collect myself because I was sobbing. And one time I got really emotional, and I stopped and said to the engineer, I should retake that. And he said, no, it fit perfectly. It's like, okay, we're leaving that emotion in, that all choked up. But yeah, the Queen's Code was originally written to transform the way women relate to men and themselves. And it's now being read and listened to by so many men that's having them understand why women do what they do, which is so hurtful to them. And they can end up really angry about it, which is not a good thing for anybody's state of affairs. And as you know, it primarily teaches the language of heroes, which are the words that connect with who men are. And it brings out the best in them. But they have to come with a congruent attitude and perception of who men are, or the words go horribly wrong. And that was what was so hard. That's what took so long to be able to write it, to make sure that I'd accounted for all the things that trigger women to take men's power, and all the ways we take men's power, and all the ways we justify doing it. And it's partially autobiographical. My friend was called a frog farmer. I had Kimberly's experience. I've been everyone in that book. I started out as Melissa. Oh my gosh, the venom. And studying men transformed me. And I have such compassion for people reading the book, and especially listening to the book, because it's so intense. It takes courage. The things that are taught in the Queen's Code, I learned over months and even years. And the characters are learning this in the period of 7 weeks, right? And if you choose to listen to it the way I recommend, which is listen to a chapter a week at a time and let yourself dwell in it, even re-listen, think about it, practice it, do the assignments that Karen and Kimberly are doing. And what we've seen is it works. We don't even know the number anymore, because when we first published it, people could print as many copies as they wanted. So I don't know. I don't even know the number, but I know it's over 100,000 people who've engaged in this whole conversation of diminishing another person's ability to produce results. What if we didn't do that?
Gosh, I love it. And I absolutely love you. Thank you for being with us today, Alison.
You're welcome.
Links to the Queen's Code have been in the chat. Our lovely moderator, Elvin, has been sharing that for you guys. And if you're catching the recording, you can, of course, find your link below this video, as well as links to Alison's other programs if you'd like to, I like to jump off the deep end. If you're like me, the programs are there for that.
Yes. And almost everything's on sale right now for the holidays, like crazy discounts. So many cool things to get.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for being with us, everyone. That's all we have time for today. But check out Alison's work. It's been more than transformative in my relationship with my father, my brother, male coworkers when I've had them, and men I've been romantically involved with. And you guys know, if it wasn't transformative,